I brought in two here from my garden, from my wonderful herb pots. So the first variety I have here is known as Greek basil. Other people prefer to just blend the herbs. I like doing mine this way just to get some clearly defined cuts on there, which helps to really release those essential oils. And then you would simply add some honey to this and mix that thoroughly together. But you can see that goes on really well. This is basil, plus I've put it in with a carrier oil, so sweet almond oil. And this is basically an alternative to you just adding a basil essential oil into there. Just distill some of it and a generous tablespoon of refined sugar. It gives you a little bit of resistance there and grittiness. Hello everyone, and welcome to my channel. Today I want to talk to you about using the herb basil. I know for some of you this is pronounced basil, but in the UK we call it basil. I love working with fresh herbs from my garden and use this as a little bit of me time to focus on doing something totally different to my day job and something that focuses my mind away from everything else that is going on around me. This time allows me to relax and replenish my energy levels, leading to a more resilient and more positive mind frame. And I'd like to share this experience with you today. It's mostly known for its uses in cooking, such as creating pestos, adding to pizzas as a topping, and also adding to a salad. It's part of the mint family of herbs and has a very distinctive aroma and flavour. And the leaves are oval shaped and have this bright green colour. And there are a number of varieties, and I've brought in two here from my garden, from my wonderful herb pots that I use and hang on my fence and work really, really well for the herbs. So the first variety I have here is known as Greek basil and sometimes called bush basil. And this is the one that I tend to use in cooking mostly. It grows really fast, so you can easily cut it back and use plenty, and then it will keep growing. And it adds a lovely, delicate flavour when added to the end of a dish. The one I will be focusing on using today, though, is this one, which is sweet basil. This is the one that I like to use to make my homemade products. I love the aromatic smell of this herb. And as I said, this is the one that I'm going to use to make some products today. So while I tell you a little bit about what is good about basil, I'm going to snip some of these stems off and remove the leaves. And don't worry if it looks like I won't have much left. I have about 3 of these pots in the garden. Okay. So let me just snip a number of these off. So while I'm separating these, I'll talk to you a little bit about basil. So it's well known as a culinary herb in cooking, but it is really quite helpful and versatile in helping deal with skin problems. And this is because it's rich in properties that reduce inflammation. So it has antioxidants, including things like eugenol and camphor, and essential oils. Indeed, you can purchase this as an essential oil to add to your massage blends. These oils can also combat stress on the skin, often caused by free radicals in our environment. And those can lead to skin problems and aging skin. It is also anti-inflammatory, and it can really help to soothe irritated skin and reduce redness. This makes basil really good as a natural remedy for irritated skin. So it's also rich in antibacterial properties, hence it really helping with inflammation of the skin. So it helps to target and remove bacteria that can cause things like breakouts and redness. And this also makes it useful when dealing with things like scrapes and minor cuts that you might have. So using basil-based products can help to exfoliate the skin, remove those dead skin cells, and then reveal a really nice, soft, smooth, well-cleansed skin. So I want to share with you some of the useful products that I make from basil. And literally by just adding a few kitchen basics, you can make some really wonderful homemade remedies. And they'll really help to make your skin feel refreshed and glowing. So we'll get rid of this. And then what I want to do is just take some of these leaves, and you do need to give them a little bit of a wash. And that's really just to remove any of the dirt that's left over from the garden. Put this to one side for now so that you can see more clearly what I'm doing. So once you've dried those a little bit, we're going to begin to make our first product. So we've washed our leaves now, and what I tend to do after that is start to chop them. So I prefer to use a herb cutter, such as this one. Other people prefer to just blend the herbs, but I like doing mine this way just to get some clearly defined cuts on there, which helps to really release those essential oils from the leaves. Does give your arms a bit of a workout, but I enjoy this part. Now, obviously you can keep going as long as you want to. And if you want to make this even finer, you could put some of this into a pestle and mortar and crush it a little bit more. Or, as I said, you can put that into a blender. And then what you would do with this is put it into a small bowl. And then you would simply add some honey to this. Round about a tablespoon will do. And mix that thoroughly together. You want it quite sticky, but you want the honey coated in the basil leaves. And then that becomes a basil and honey face mask. So I'm just going to demonstrate it on my hand here. But you can see that goes on really well. And the smell is just wonderful. And it's really cooling and refreshing, and you can imagine that on your face, providing a real good cleanse on your skin. So do be prepared to get a little bit messy. So obviously what I want to do is just wash that off. So just wash that off. And that's my first example of what you could use basil for. As an alternative to the honey, you could use a thick yogurt, which would be really cooling on the skin as well. So the next thing that I'd like to make for you is a basil toner. And the way that you do this is you take your washed basil leaves and put them into a bowl and pour on boiling water, and then allow that to cool in the fridge overnight. And that's what I did here last night. And always put a label on. I mean, my refrigerator's full of little jars and bottles, so I always make sure I put a label on so that I know what this is. So I've got basil plus boiled water and then the date that I did that, which is important. So what I'm going to do, just remove that for now and put a towel on here just in case this does get a bit messy. So you want a spray bottle. I've got quite a large one here which I use, but you can have a small one as well. And what you want to do is, oh, that's lovely. Take that basil water and just distill some of it into your spray bottle, and then you can put the remainder back in the fridge. And then you've got a nice cooling spray. In fact, where that previous treatment was, I can wipe that off with this. Okay, so that's your basil toner. Now, another product that I like to make from basil is the basil and lemon scrub. I know it looks like I've got a lot of things going on here, but obviously normally you would probably only focus on making one product. It's just I'm making quite a few to demonstrate to you. So with the basil toner, what you would do is again cut some basil leaves up. We've got some that we had left over from that first go. Just chopping the remainder that I had left over. And as I said, you can have this as fine as you want. You can really take it to a paste if you want by using a blender, or you can just keep going with this. And once you are happy with the consistency, then put that into a bowl. And you can make as much as you want. I'm just doing a little bit here to demonstrate. And then what you want to add to this, because you're making an exfoliator, is you want to just squeeze some lemon into that. And then you want to add a generous tablespoon of refined sugar. Use that to give it a bit of a stir. And that creates more of a scrub, so it gives you a little bit of resistance there and grittiness, which is very good at getting rid of any dead skin cells. So it's where you feel you need a little bit more than, say, just the mask that we had earlier. You need a little bit more grittiness in there to create that. I'm just going to wash that off my hands. So that was my basil and lemon scrub, and it's very aromatic, so the lemon adds to that as well. So the next one that I have for you is called a basil oil. Now this one I've had to prepare in advance, but again, with one of my jars, this is basil plus I've put it in with a carrier oil, so sweet almond oil, and this is basically an alternative to you just adding a basil essential oil into there. What you're doing is you're putting the basil leaves themselves and then adding the carrier oil in. And then what I would do is use a funnel to take out the oil that you've had in these leaves. And you don't need a lot. And we're going to take the leaves out because we're going to do something else with that in a moment. And then what you have here is a lovely basil oil. So particularly if you've got skin that really needs calming or redness, you can literally just put some of this on. And it's almost like creating your own basil essential oil there. I'm going to put some on this hand as well. This hand's feeling neglected. It's a wonderful smell. And what you can do with the drained leaves that you've got here is you can put these back into the pestle and mortar. So the pestle and mortar just allows you to crush those leaves a little bit more. And this leaves you with a paste. It might be useful to put this one in the blender because you want the paste quite smooth. And if you've got skin that needs calming down, this makes a lovely paste that you can leave it on. So if you've got skin that needs a little bit of healing, so it can make a nice basic healing paste. So a few words about basil. It's generally safe to use, but as with all herbs, people can experience a reaction such as a skin rash or itchiness, especially if you're known to suffer from other allergies. So do a patch test, maybe on an area that's not really quite so visible, and see if you do get a skin reaction. And if you do, obviously don't use. But generally, basil is okay to use. Do only apply it to unbroken skin though. So a few more things to note about basil. Obviously, if you're using it as an essential oil, always remember to mix it with a carrier oil first. And some basil products can make your skin sensitive to sunlight, so be aware of this if you're planning to go out in the sun and you know that your skin is sensitive, then probably basil is not the thing to use. And also, a high intake of basil, such as if you're taking it through a supplement form, can interact with certain medications, so you do need to check that. And basil supplements should also be avoided during pregnancy and breastfeeding. But basil is such a wonderful calming herb, and I hope you've enjoyed sharing my experience of focusing on this herb and creating some of the wonderful products that we've just produced in a matter of minutes, which you might find useful as well. Thank you for watching.